Good evening, everybody. My name is Odie Hawkins, and I'd like to welcome you once again to yet another show. We're calling this Radio on Video. And what it is, it's a replay of radio shows that I wrote in the 1980s for something called the Sears Radio Theater, which morphed into the Mutual Radio Theater. And Zola and I, my wife and I, decided that it would make interesting listening for someone who's used to looking at things. So we decided to combine the two experiences so that you have something to look at and listen to at the same time. The story this evening is about the Grimke sisters. And a very interesting thing happened. I started doing research about who was involved in the abolitionist movement at that time, in the 1800s, when slavery was in flower. And it comes out that these two daughters, these two sisters, were very active in the abolitionist movement. And I won't say anything more than that about it, because you'll hear it for yourself.
All right.
The show is in 4 acts. Actually, there's like a prologue and then 4 acts. And
there may be commercials and...
This is Lauren Green.
and of course...
It seems that the children of
Lauren
our generation find something to rebel against. There are those who rebel because everyone else is doing it. It's popular. This is the kind of rebellion that usually fades as youth ages.
All right.
So
But it is the youthful rebellion that matures and becomes a lifelong crusade.
Or a midnight snack.
Sarah and Angelina Grimke,
Even though it may not be midnight.
Judge John Falcheron Grimke, a member of the South Carolina Supreme Court, and Mary Smith Grimke, were leaders in a rebellion that became a lifelong crusade. One that this great country should never allow itself the indulgence of forgetting.
John, I just don't know what to do about them. I just don't. Do you know what they did today?
Yes, I do. Nobody told me the moment I came in the door.
Cut the lace trimmers from their dresses and the bows from their shoes.
Why? Why did they do it?
They said it was a needless indulgence. That's the reason they gave. But it doesn't stop there. Oh, no. They insisted that I provide the household slaves with daily religious instruction.
How do you think I feel? A member of the South Carolina Supreme Court with 2 daughters traipsing around town talking about how inhumane slavery is. I mean, just think, here we are, plantation owners, respectable members of the community with 2 daughters who... I just don't understand it. We've given those girls everything.
It wasn't us, John. I hate to say it, but having an older brother preach abolitionism and then pass away, he gave them the idea that whatever he said was the gospel truth. Oh, I wish to heaven Thomas had lived. I'm sure he would have seen the error of his ways.
Well, I dare say you're right. But I am simply appalled that they should want to toss aside all the benefits of their heritage.
They could be the belles of Charleston, but they don't want that. They want to spoil everything.
I think the best thing we can do is pray for them and hope that they will eventually see the light.
History has offered us many characters in search of a role to play. It is seldom presented us with 2 women playing such tremendous roles in the history of the anti-slavery movement, a pre-civil rights organization. This introduction to the Grimke sisters is only the beginning of our story.
Only the beginning.
Mutual Radio Theater, a new adventure in radio listening. 5 nights of exceptional entertainment every week, brought to you in Elliott Lewis's production of the Mutual Radio Theater. Our story, the Grimke sisters, Abolitionists, a portrait of real people drawn from life in America in the 19th century, by Odie Hawkins. Our stars, Mary Jane Croft and Janet Waldo.
Mutual Radio Theater is brought to you by Sears, a name that means quality and value. A name that you can count on for service and dependability. Sears, where America shops for value.
Product value. Sears Laboratories work to maximize that value for you. Its manufacturing consultants work with products and manufacturers cut production
mind this
costs.
is from
Good
another
examples are
time. You can't
Hollister
buy it
Company.
anymore.
Its plastic parts require molds to
Maybe
form.
online.
Molds are expensive, especially certain designs, so our manufacturing consultants recommended designs that cut mold costs. End result, a better value for you. Sears Laboratories. One reason Sears is where America shops for value.
Well, they did.
Dog days in Eagle County, Iowa. No breeze, no trees. Just searing sun and dust that cakes in your throat. But one thing washes it clean. Nestea.
Nestea tastes good. That was the last time I heard Nestea.
That was clever.
Nestea tastes good.
Nestea iced tea. No sugar, no bubbles, no additives. Just clean, light, pure tea.
No taste.
Taste.
Story.
In order to really understand the nature of this story, we must force ourselves back into another time. We must force ourselves to relate to a time in our country's history when some human beings belonged to other human beings. Slaves, who had value only if they were able to work from before dawn till long after dark.
Dear Diary, I find it most difficult to record my feelings at this time, but I know I must do it. Every nerve in my being rejects the terrible emotions that are aroused in me by the event that forces these words into my diary. I listened to Noni being lashed again yesterday, and in some strange way, I began to feel the sting of the whip on my own back. Noni, one of our household slaves, would not be whipped so often, Mother says, if she remembered to do everything she was told. Well, I don't see how it'd be possible for her to remember all the things she has to do in a 24-room house. Yesterday, after I'd seen and heard Noni being whipped again for some petty thing, I felt I had no choice but to try to help her escape this never-ending punishment. I ran down to the harbor with an idea. Sir, pardon me, sir.
Aye, and what might I do for the likes of such a pretty little lady as yourself?
Are you the captain of the ship?
Every day of the week, little lady. Every blasted day of the week. Look alive there, or you'll be in the brig 4 days in. Now, let's speak quickly, little one. We've got loading to be done.
Well, I have something very important to ask you. May I come aboard for a moment?
Well, that you may for only a moment. Careful how you step the gangplank. We'd not like to be fishing you out of these cold harbor waters.
Captain, Noni, our slave, was whipped again today.
You are.
I want to help her escape. I feel so sorry for her. She's always being beaten. She sleeps in the hallway.
Did you not say that she was a slave, little one?
Yes, but she shouldn't be. No one should be a slave.
Well, there are wiser heads than ours debating that. What might your precious name be, little one?
Sarah Grimke.
Oh, are you one of the Grimkes? I mean, is your father Judge Grimke?
Yes, do you know him?
Well, I dare say there's not a soul in Charleston who doesn't know Judge Grimke. Now then, how about this slave?
Yes, her name is Noni. I have a few coins. I'll pay for
Well,
it.
I couldn't take your money, little lady. Nor could I offer you any aid in this matter.
Why not, Captain?
Because it's against the law.
But slavery is against human nature.
If that were the case, the good Lord would not have allowed it to exist in the first place.
That was it.
Now, I have to ask you to step ashore, little one.
Wow.
Hey, you say you're Judge Grimke's daughter?
Until he tells the other people. What his daughters do.
No, I absolutely refuse, Mother.
Now listen to me closely, Angelina. Your father and I are Episcopalians. Your grandparents were Episcopalians. And in order for you to take your place in our society, you must be confirmed in the Episcopalian Church. Don't you understand how important that is?
I refuse to be a part of a church that will not say that slavery is wrong.
Angelina, how can you do this to us, to your family? You'll be the only girl in your group who hasn't been confirmed. You'll be an outcast.
I don't care, Mother.
Oh, why do you and Sarah make life so difficult for us, for yourselves? You sound just like your brother Thomas.
Slavery is morally wrong. It is indefensible in any humane terms. But you must be prepared to suffer the consequences for saying so. After all, we are the Grimkes of South Carolina, slave owners.
So she always remembered his words.
It truly pains me to have to say this to you, Sarah,
because I hate to forbid you and your sister anything. But I must insist that you do not continue to teach Noni how to read.
But, Father, why shouldn't she be taught how to read?
Why? Simple. She's a slave. Slaves shouldn't know how to read and write.
But why, Father?
Why? Because it's against the law. That's why.
There.
No one is to know about our lessons. Now then, I will show you each letter of the alphabet and how to form it. Is the door locked? If you're caught, Father will probably sell you, and I'll be given a harsh talking to, worse than the one he gave Sarah.
Dear Diary, I have just returned from a business trip to Philadelphia with Father, and several great changes have happened in my life. The first and greatest is I've decided to become a Quaker. To my knowledge, there are only 2 Quakers in Charleston, both old men, and I shall become the 3rd. I'm sure Father will be outraged, but it doesn't matter. I was very impressed by the Quakers in Philadelphia. The simplicity of their dress, the calmness of their manner, their way of treating people, and the fact that they don't own other human beings. I have sincerely questioned myself about my reasons for becoming a Quaker, and all the answers seem fair and correct. I wonder how this will affect Angelina, my poor darling little sister. I sometimes wonder if it's fair to have burdened her with the weight of understanding that our dearly departed brother passed on to me.
Slavery is a low, mean, vicious, immoral way of life, Sarah, both for the enslaved and the slaver. Can't they understand? In the process of keeping another human being in chains, they must also become bound.
If only I were younger, or she were older, it'd be so much better for us. Sometimes, being 13 years older than she makes me feel that I'm imposing my ideas about life on her. But then I have to thank God that it is I, not some crazed believer in slavery, who's the major influence in her young life. She will be so lonely when I leave, I know that. But I must leave soon. I'm of age, and despite what Father and Mother think, I'll sound mind. I must leave this hell filled with the bodies of people who are beaten, starved, and worked to death. My soul recoils at the idea of remaining in a place where death is the only salvation from such evils. I will take the stage to Philadelphia and make a new life for myself.
If you need anything, Dole, just let us know.
For my little girl.
I'm not a little girl. I'm 27 years old, Mother. Angelina.
Don't feel badly about leaving. I know why you have to go.
I'm glad you understand. All right. Bye, Mother, Dad. Take care.
Right now's the time to buy paint and stain, because all Olympic products are on special. Buy 4 gallons, get 1 more free. That's 1 free with 4 on Olympic Overcoat, a latex house paint that really beats the weather. And on Olympic Latex Stain, a stain that lets you stain over paint. Even 1 free with 4 on Olympic Oil Stain, the #1 seller. It's not every day you can save so much on something so good. Hurry, special ends June 1st at participating Olympic dealers.
This is Casey of Casey and the Sunshine Band. Believe me, I wish I knew a song about the great work the USO is doing because I'd sing it. Instead, let me tell you in simple words that the USO gives a human dimension to the military life of millions of people. Maybe it's with a hospital visit to a disabled vet, recreation for a young GI, or an informal education program near a remote base. The USO, service is their middle name. Show your concern and support them through your local USO campaign or the United Way.
Like, we know you have an agenda.
The story of the Grimke sisters, abolitionists, continues.
Dear Sarah, I shall soon leave Charleston to come to Philadelphia to be with you, in a place where people are not treated like beasts. I am hurt by the thought that I will probably never see Mother again, not until she has given up slavery, which I think will be never. I understand better with each passing day why you felt compelled to leave the place of our birth. In this year of our Lord, 1829, I too shall leave. I will be with you, and we will follow the Quaker teachings together. I think very often, my dear sister, of how different all of the children of our family are. Thomas with his strong sense of right,
Captain. If God had intended them to be ordinary human beings, he would have made them white.
First Sarah, now you.
That's right.
Why must you go?
If Sarah has not been able to make you understand, and our brother Thomas before her, how can I explain it? We will not be slave owners, Mother. Can't you understand? We will not own people and force them to work for nothing.
We cannot offer our blessings, but I will say to you, as I said to Sarah, if you need anything at all, just let us know. Goodbye, Angelina.
Goodbye, Mother, Dad. Goodbye, Henry, my dear brother.
And now, brothers and sisters, we will pray silently in the manner that doth announce to the world that we are of the Quaker persuasion. Sister Sarah, Sister Angelina, please move to the other section.
Why should we move to the other section, please?
While this badge of degradation, being forced to sit in a segregated section of this meeting, is forced on our black sisters, we feel it is our duty to share it with them, to point up the hypocrisy of a religious group that doth not profess a belief in slavery, but in some rare fashion can justify segregation by sex and color.
If you persist in sitting for worship in the black female section of the meeting hall, we have no choice but to exclude you from our meeting.
If that is the case, then so be it. You may have no choice but to exclude us, but we have the right to remove ourselves from this hypocrisy.
That's right.
Sarah, did you see their faces?
Yes, Angelina, I did see their faces, and I don't think we have anything to be joyful about.
Oh no, I didn't mean to.
But I know what you mean. It was a bit funny, wasn't it? Those sanctimonious souls sitting in their segregated pews, thinking that God approves of them because they dress simply, say thee and thine, and don't own slaves. I agree, it was funny. I wish I could laugh.
Sarah, have you read this article in William Lloyd Garrison's paper, The Liberator?
Yes, I've been reading The Liberator for some time.
The abolitionists. Sarah, the abolitionists. I think they're the right people for us. I'm writing Mr. Garrison a letter. Dear Mr. Garrison, it is my deep, solemn, deliberate conviction that the abolition of slavery is a cause worth dying for.
They did a
We just received an extraordinary letter from a woman named Angelina Grimke. We must print it. It expresses the deepest concern for human rights I've ever been exposed to.
But Sarah, don't you see how wrong it is?
To offer slaves an opportunity to colonize Liberia? No, I don't see it so wrong.
It is wrong not to abolish slavery. We should devote our total energies to the elimination of slavery here in our own country. It is wrong that people should be forced to leave this country in order to be free.
I strongly disagree with you, Angelina. I think it would be an advantage for the Negroes to be in their own society.
But Sarah, don't you remember? It was for this very reason that we took ourselves out of the Quaker persuasion. Are you now going to speak for segregation?
It is not segregation, Angelina. It is colonization.
Dear Diary, Sarah and I are currently disagreeing on an issue. No great matter. Sisters should disagree from time to time. It acts as a stimulation. Our disagreement has stimulated me to write a pamphlet. I'm going to call it An Appeal to Christian Women of the South. In this pamphlet, I will speak of the horror, the cruelty, the licentiousness of slavery. I beg all Southern women to come out against slavery, to free their slaves, to help educate them, create a healthy society, one that we can be proud of living in.
Utopia.
Yes.
Mary, have you seen this pamphlet?
Yes, I saw it.
My God, what has happened to them up there? An Appeal to Christian Women of the South by Angelina Grimke. She sounds like a raving maniac. Listen to this. Slavery is a whited sepulchre, full of dead men's bones and all unclean. And there's more. I think it's only right that the postmaster should be burning this filth in the public square.
Well, that isn't the only expression of dislike for Angelina's pamphlet. The mayor was here earlier to speak with me about Angelina's coming to visit us.
Noni, bring us 2 lemonades, quickly. Go on, what do you want?
Well, nothing, actually. He just simply wanted to inform me that Angelina would not be allowed to leave the boat in Charleston Harbor.
Where is that? I'm sorry, my dear, go on.
She would not be allowed to leave the boat or communicate with anyone in this city by any means. And furthermore, he said, if she should manage to come ashore somehow, she'd be arrested. He strongly advised me to inform her that she shouldn't come to Charleston because there have been threats made.
Well, I guess that's to be expected. Right and crash like this. How dare she drag our name down like this? Where is that? Noni!
I can't go. Sarah, I can't go home.
I know, darling. I read the letter.
I would defy them, the police, everybody.
No, you mustn't. We can't bring that kind of pressure to bear on our own parents.
Was very hyper.
Dear Diary, it is now a year since Angelina's pamphlet, An Appeal to Christian Women of the South, was published, and she was denied the opportunity to visit our parents, our home, because of it. During the course of this year, Angelina and I have had philosophical differences, but her latest pamphlet, An Epistle to the Clergy of the Southern States, has taken me completely to her side. I hope the ministers of the South will respond to her, to the pressure of her arguments. How can men of God support the degradation of human beings? Or at least not oppose it? I think Angelina and I have found our life's work.
Ready on set.
Hi, this is Michael Landon. You know, what goes on behind the scenes is important. Because if things don't work well here, they won't work well up front. Same with pictures. What's behind them can make a difference. So I get mine printed on Kodak paper. And it's always available where you see the Kodak paper sign. You can't miss it. It's the sign with that memorable face. Mine.
You're on, Mr. Landon.
Okay. Look for the Kodak paper sign when you get your pictures developed. And tell them Michael sent you.
The American Land Title Association takes you backstage with T.G. Shepard.
Reality-based show about...
Hi folks, this is T.G. Shepard. You know, before you put your money into a home, find out what's going on with things like financing, closing costs, and land title protection. The American Land Title Association will help you. For free information, write ALTA, Box 566, Washington, D.C., 20044.
You know, storm it down. Oh, we're back.
Yes, back to the show.
The secretary of the American Anti-Slavery Society invited the Grimke sisters to New York to speak to women abolitionists. The Grimkes became evangelists of abolition.
Dear Diary, last evening, as Sarah and I were speaking in Dorchester, Massachusetts, men entered the town hall and took seats. Several men. Somehow, I did not feel embarrassed by their presence. After the meeting, Sarah and I had a long discussion about the impact of dealing with a mixed audience. We came to the conclusion that it would be necessary to speak on the problem of women's rights as well as abolition.
It's bad enough that these two women are going about the country trying to tell others what to do with their property. I'm saying to you that we must silence these women. We must make them aware of their true nature. God did not make women as strong as men, but he did design them in such a fashion as to be perfectly suited for the bearing of children. He gave us a creature who offered perfect companionship, not someone to argue with or to compete with. God created woman from the rib of man and gave her a place, the home, which is where every God-fearing woman should be.
And still do. Look at the
Dear Diary, in Boston, every church was closed to us. Placards announcing our meetings in private homes were torn down. The General Association of Congregational Ministers of Massachusetts condemn our speaking out, and yet we persist. The opposition to our efforts to seek justice has stimulated us tremendously.
Dear Diary, my sister is a glowing example of how steel is tempered by fire. She has written a pamphlet entitled Letters on the Equality of the Sexes and the Condition of Women. Her soul sings and moans from its pages, and so indeed does mine.
The many pages of history teem with women's wrongs. It is wet with women's tears. I urge women to plant themselves beside men to whom they were designed to be companions and helpers in every good work and word. And in a spirit of togetherness, go forward.
Sarah, listen to this. Wendell Phillips says, Sarah Grimke's eloquence swept the chords of the human heart with a power that has never been surpassed and rarely equaled.
Oh, I'm pleased and flattered by his words, but I'm even more pleased that you've been invited to speak to the legislature of Massachusetts.
Oh, Sarah, I'm so afraid.
Don't be afraid. Be proud that you're the first woman ever to be allowed to speak to those gentlemen on the issues of slavery and women's rights.
The research.
Gentlemen,
oh, man.
Today, in this year of our Lord, 1838, I stand before you as a Southerner, exiled from the land of my birth by the sounds of the lash and the piteous cry of the slave. I stand before you as a repentant slaveholder. I stand before you as a moral being. As a moral being, I owe it to the suffering slave and to the deluded master, to my country and the world, to do all that I can to overturn a system of complicated crimes, built up upon the broken hearts and prostrate bodies of my countrymen in chains, and cemented by the blood and sweat and tears of my sisters in bondage.
Dear Diary, I'm pleased to be able to write of Angelina's triumph before the legislature of Massachusetts. The chairman was in tears during the course of his speech, such was her eloquence. I'm also pleased with the situation I can see developing between her and Theodore Weld. Weld is a Connecticut abolitionist who has given his time and expertise in an effort to channel our energies to their most productive ends. He is deeply in love with Angelina, but pretends not to be. His greatest fear, I think, is that our common cause would be made to suffer if he were to commit himself to Angelina. I want to scream at him that this would not be so, that the linking together of our efforts would only forge a stronger chain.
Sarah, Theodore has asked me to marry him.
Praise be.
Finally.
If there was ever a case of love at first sight, I was exposed to it when I met Angelina Grimke. I was hesitant about exposing my feelings to her at first, blame it on my Connecticut background or whatever you will, but what I was concerned about was whether a wife would prevent me from continuing to carry on the fight for the abolition of slavery. I need not have worried. I knew after her speech to the Massachusetts legislature that we could accomplish a great deal together. In May of 1838, we were joined in holy matrimony.
Their wedding was not of the usual variety. We made it a demonstration for anti-slavery and women's rights. 6 former slaves of our family were invited as a protest against the position they'd been forced to occupy in our society. 2 Negro and 2 white clergymen offered prayers. William Lloyd Garrison read the marriage agreement, and Theodore read a statement that protested against the power allowed the husband by the laws of the United States over the person and property of his wife. My dear brother-in-law,
We saw a way with our wedding, dear diary, to strike at the system we hate. No sugar from slave-grown cane went into our wedding cake. Only free
They were
sugar.
serious.
The mattress of our farm home in New Jersey was not stuffed with the usual slave-grown cotton. Our honeymoon was devoted to a deeper commitment to the cause. We were part of the group that opened the Anti-Slavery Convention of American Women in Pennsylvania Hall. 3,000 Negro and white delegates were seated together. This defiance of the laws drew a fierce mob outside the hall. I made an effort to speak above and beyond their vicious assaults on justice. Men, brothers, mothers, daughters, sisters.
It's a choice.
Many accept that the slave is unhappy under the worst forms of slavery, But I have never seen a happy slave under any circumstances. I have seen him dance in his chains, it is true, but he is not happy. With all hope gone, they sometimes adopt the attitude, let us eat, drink, for tomorrow we die. In slavery, there is no neutral ground. If you are not for it, you must be against it. What can we do? What can we do? We can show the mob with its threats that we are unafraid, that we are ready to die for the cause. And what can we women who have no voice at the ballot box do? We can petition, and petition, and petition. When enough of us have signed our names, backed by moral strength, and put these petitions before our legislatures, they will have no choice but to effect change.
That's right. That's what they're doing now. Agitate.
Dear Diary, I'm living with Angelina and Theodore in a large, comfortable home in Massachusetts. After the exhaustion of dealing with the bigots, the prejudiced, the biased, we felt a need to rest for a bit. During the course of this rest, Theodore and I have decided to document evidence of how cruelly the people in slavery are treated. We are calling it Slavery as It Is, the Testimony of 1,000 Witnesses.
Wow.
The testimonies are being taken from newspapers that advertise the fugitive slaves. We were quite surprised to discover that slave hunters, as well as people who were totally against slavery, offered their advertisements without hesitation.
Household slave, runaway, answers to the name Noni, will no doubt show the marks of recent whippings. Reward offered.
Field hand, answers to the name Jasper. Runaway, January 12, 1838, has learned how to read, should be considered dangerous, wanted dead or alive.
Runaway slave, stamp on the left cheek and arm, and a piece is taken off of her left ear.
Sarah, female slave, almost full grown, branded N.E. on the breast, and having both small toes cut off.
John, neck permanently disfigured, escapee from a punishment. About 22 years old, to be considered dangerous. Reward, dead or alive. Repeat, considered dangerous.
Odie, small shape, sneaky, has learned how to write, left eye missing, considered dangerous. Reward, dead or alive.
Yeah.
Our investigation produced a mood of deep despondency. We had no idea that our fellow citizens, our fellow Americans, both North and South, regarded enslavement of their fellow creatures in such a narrow, calloused light.
After Sarah and Theodore completed Slavery as It Is, the Testimony of 1,000 Witnesses, we renewed our pledge to fight for justice.
This is Gene King for your Better Business Bureau.
Oh, wow.
When was the last time you checked
The
your car's
orchestration
oil?
these people use,
If your car's oil level is low, your engine's performance will decrease. At the same time, wear and tear on the engine will increase. In fact, did you know that if you don't have enough oil in your engine, various parts of your car, such as the pistons and bearings, can actually melt due to heat caused by friction? Now, the best time to check your car's oil level is when your engine is hot. You know how often you should add oil to your car? Well, that depends on how old your car is, as well as your driving habits. For example, when you drive at high speeds, particularly in hot weather, you'll burn up more oil. Also, if you have a new car as opposed to an older model, your engine is probably using more oil. Because, well, its parts haven't been broken in yet. So to be on the safe side, check your oil level every time you get gas.
Have something to
A
drink,
tip from your Better
midnight
Business
snack,
Bureau.
or evening snack. Here we go again.
Lauren Green again. And here's the fourth act of the Grimke sisters, abolitionists.
Sarah, Angelina, I'd like to hear more. Who knows, someday I might make an effort to write the story of the Grimke sisters. One of them is now my wife, but I'll simply use poetic license when we reach that section.
Sarah, you speak first, sister.
Well, our brother Thomas was the one to open my hot eyes and soul to the vicious seeds inherent to the practice of slavery. He was a great man, I think, our brother Thomas. I cannot honestly say where he developed his opinions, how he came to the conclusion that slavery was wrong. All I can remember, as far back as I can recall, he was telling me, Sarah, slavery is wrong. It is wrong because it forces one group of people to serve another group of people. It degrades the people who are forced to slave. It demoralizes the people who use slaves. And that's the horrible picture he painted on my mind.
It's strange somehow to think of how differently our brothers were. How different Thomas was from Henry.
Yes, it is strange. Henry never felt that slavery was or is wrong.
I can better understand Henry than I can Thomas, his attitude.
You can?
Yes, objectively speaking. I mean, I should think that having a group of people to serve you, to answer to your every beck and call, would be a delightful state of affairs. If you never bothered to make the moralistic considerations we're making here at this dinner table.
Yes, I can understand that too, objectively speaking. But why one and not the other? Why would Thomas see it for the evil it is, and Henry, why would Henry look at it in another light altogether?
Maybe it was parental influence.
Parental influence, yes, but it was as strong for Thomas as it was for Henry. How does one explain that?
I would be hard put to give an answer to that. I would be more interested in knowing why the two of you decided against slavery.
Well, I cannot speak for Angelina, but for myself, realizing the validity of Thomas's teachings, I had no choice but to feel that slavery is evil. Had I not had the benefit of his advice, his teaching, I cannot predict what my attitude would have been. If I stretched my imagination far enough, I could see myself sitting on the veranda, sipping a cold drink, watching people labor in the hot sun for my benefit.
Sarah, I can recall moments like that, but with a sense of shame.
I think from the moment I heard a fellow creature scream for mercy under the lash, I was against it.
I think it was that for me also. The sound of a person being whipped like a beast without a soul. And the other things, the unspeakable things that every child knows about, whose father owns slaves. All of that and more.
Makes it difficult to know who to pray for sometimes. The slave owner or the slave.
You own slaves, Theodore. That wouldn't be a difficult decision. I take this opportunity to record a number of feelings, both good and bad. I'm extremely happy for Angelina that she should have been fortunate enough to find a husband like Theodore. He's one of the few men I've ever met who is so secure within himself, he doesn't find it necessary or proper to impose his will on others. He offers his version of the truth and prays it will be accepted. Because I live here with them, the vicious rumor has been circulated that Theodore's the husband to both of us. It makes me very sad to realize there are people in the world with minds like that. The tract that Theodore and I assembled, slavery as it is, the testimony of 1,000 witnesses, is being given a tremendous reception. There are those who think that it's a pack of lies and hate it, and others who know it's the truth and hate it also. I feel so completely drained from the struggle of trying to make people understand that it is immoral and inhumane to treat our fellow creatures so brutally. I ask myself, what are the magic words or phrases? If slave owners can invoke the name of God as a justification for their sins, what is the counterbalance?
Sarah, I don't think this mob will listen to you.
He's right, Sarah. I've seen several men with guns.
Even mobs are made up of people. We came here to speak to them, and we will.
And now, our featured speaker of the evening, Miss Sarah Grimke.
Thank you very much for that. At least it tells me my audience is not asleep.
You ought to be at home baking biscuits or something.
I might do that after I've earned your support for abolition of slavery and the right of women to be first-class citizens. I want every man and woman, unfortunately I only see 4 besides my sister and me, I want everyone here to leave this hall pledging in your heart that you will work for the construction of a decent, humane society. We can begin this by eliminating slavery.
You're crazy! Why should we give up our slaves? What have we got to gain?
Firstly, my friend, your soul. Secondly, you will have demonstrated to the world that we are a civilized people who needn't depend on the the misery of others to make our way. Where are you from, my friend?
I ain't from Africa.
No, you're not. But think of how differently you would have arrived here were you from Africa.
No, let her speak. Let's hear this hand laying there.
If you had been brought here as the African that you call a slave was brought here, you would have spent at least 2 or 3 months below the decks of a ship that was coated with the filth of hundreds of bodies packed together like beans in a sack. You would not have enough room to sit up straight or turn to your right or left. Your chains would have worn pieces of your flesh away. You would have been taken off of this wretched vessel naked and sold to the highest bidder for a lifetime of drudgery. And you would have survived in exactly the way they have survived, because they are a resourceful people. And only the very strongest were able to complete the Middle Passage. And because they are strong, they will be free someday, with or without our consent or help. I beg of you to consider the future, our country's future. Let these people go.
Let my people go. Is that what
The conclusion of our story after this word.
Hi, this is Michael Landon.
Are you the Michael Landon who talks about Kodak paper on TV?
And
I just love your commercials.
Make it 5 acts.
Thanks, but it's Kodak paper. Do you get your pictures printed on Kodak paper too?
Absolutely. I always look for you when they come develop.
You mean you look for the Kodak paper signed with my face on it?
Yeah, because I always get Kodak paper where I see you.
Right. Well, nice talking to you.
Yeah, what a handsome sign.
Look for the Kodak paper sign when you get your pictures developed.
This match is one of the world's most lethal weapons. It kills thousands of people each year, countless thousands of animals. It lays waste to millions of acres and destroys thousands of homes. It strikes at high noon and in the dead of night. Man created the match. Man uses it to his benefit. And misuses it to his sorrow. Only you can prevent problems.
A
public service of this station, the Smokey Bear program, and the Ad Council.
And I didn't know that they did until I found out.
Sarah, Theodore, listen to this. Archibald Grimke is scheduled to speak at Brewster Hall, Lincoln University in Pennsylvania.
Grimke?
Sounds like more than a coincidence to me. How many people in this world are named Grimke?
Upon inquiry, Sarah and Angelina discovered that they had 2 nephews, relatives created by a relation of their brother Henry with a slave named Nancy. The sisters publicly acknowledged their black nephews, Archibald and Francis, and made them part of the Grimke Weld household. At their aunt's expense, Archibald and Francis completed their education. Francis Grimke became pastor of the 15th Street Presbyterian Church in Washington, D.C. And Archibald Grimke became a U.S. consul to Santo Domingo and vice president of the NAACP. Daughters of the South, enemies of a degrading style of life, Sarah and Angelina preached the gospel of togetherness and fired the conscience of many American men and women. The dialogue of this story was invented, the circumstances constructed for dramatic effect. But the truth is that we are a stronger and a more moral nation because the Grimke sisters were for real.
We're for real. We're for real. They was for real.
They were for real. Circumstances for real. Wow.
I've got it all old-fashioned, except about my thirst. Cause when I need refreshment, old-fashioned taste comes first. One thing I can depend on when I get parched and dry, the taste of good old-fashioned lemonade. Right in country time, country time, country time. Tastes like that good old-fashioned lemonade.
Not too tart, not too sweet, with natural lemon flavor. Country time lemonade flavored drink.
Tastes like that good old-fashioned lemonade.
This slide is of Marion Kid shopping in Tijuana. And now we're heading back to the good old
We're giving
USA.
the commercials a chance
Here's the
to
border inspector.
Just before we confiscated Daddy's $60 parrot.
Never mind, Kim.
And there's Daddy having a
Just so you know what things sounded like in
Birds are
1980.
restricted from entry. How was I to know? Write for Traveler's Tips. It's a free booklet. You should have written Traveler's Tips, USDA, Washington 20250.
Gosh, free, Dad.
Quiet, Jim.
Wrapping up now.
Nelson Riddle.
The Mutual Radio Theater is brought to you 5 nights a week at this time. Tonight's original radio play, The Grimke Sisters, Abolitionists, was written by Odie Hawkins and produced and directed by Fletcher Marshall. Your host was Lauren Green. Our stars were Mary Jane Croft and Janet Waldo. Featured in the cast were Lynn Berman, Ann Seymour, Marley Bear, Carla McVeigh, and Howard Culver. The Mutual Radio Theater theme was composed by Nelson Riddle. John Harlan speaking. The Elliott Lewis production of Mutual Radio Theater is a presentation of CBI.
Mutual Radio Theater has been brought to you by Country Time lemonade-flavored drink mix. Country Time tastes like good old-fashioned lemonade.
This is Andy Grimke.
Good old-fashioned lemonade.
At the same time, I've got another story I think you'll find riotously amusing.
Okay. Once again, we have had a story. And once again, I'd like to say, welcome to Monday night and radio on video. We will be doing this at approximately 7:30 on Monday evenings, complete with the fireplace that may keep you warm, but it doesn't do anything for us. And we're having a friendly, warm time about it. Zola Salena is my co-producer and partner in this enterprise. So we're calling it the Radio on Video Project.
I hope that today's show really resonated, considering what is going on in the world in 2023.
Hey, think about it. This was done in 1980, and the relevance it has to present day happenings is incredible.
Exactly.
I had no idea. Those writers who want to say, well, I was prescient and I knew this was going to happen. I had no idea that the life that we are going through now would be reflected in what has been written in 1980.
And then there's the 1619 project. Coming up too. So
that's coming up.
Right. So.
Well, it looks like 1619 all over again when you.
I know, women's rights and be at home. Yes.
How about that?
I'll tell you.
Hey, it's a rainy, chilly night in Long Beach.
Yes.
So I hope it's not that way with where you are.
Stay warm.
See you next week.
And
Zola, you want to add some last words to that?
Just stay warm and be good to each other.
Be good to yourself.
Okay. And yourself.
And yourself.
All right.
Us.
And us, too.
And us.
All right. If you like this show, enjoy, hit the like button. And your website, Odie Hawkins, is www.odiehawkins.com.
That's right.
And one can just Google Odie Hawkins to see the variety of subjects that you have written about. And with that, see you next time.
Next Monday.
Okay.